Hello there reason people, PoohBear here and welcome to my channel, and today we're going to be looking at a little bit of a mixed bag by the looks of it of different players, but believe it or not they're all actually semi-related in some shape or form, so I thought I'd just go through and have a quick chat about the different ones we've got here. Very quickly, I'm just using the Morningstar to produce the sound in the background. Over this side I do have another keyboard wired up to this CV tap. This piano's not playing at all. I'm just going to be using some MIDI data to show off some of the InRange stuff on the Tonic Mint. But let's actually start at the top with a simple transpose. Transpose is quite nice. This is called an A-B transpose by Tonic Mint. Obviously we can very quickly transpose by a simple A-B switch, but we've also got control, so we can actually manually control it. And what I actually like about this particular device, and I actually used this very recently in my big In-C project where I had my 24 instruments, and this was actually in the stacks, because I could actually feed this off, and I had this all connected up to a Hamu, so all I had to do is have a couple of Hamus and I could change all of the octaves to all my different instruments, which I wanted to. Straight under that we've got the UTL, and the Transpose I believe is actually a free device, and underneath we've got the UTL. Again, I believe this is a free device still, and we can obviously transpose via this as well. It's a lot more basic kind of transpose we actually have here, but it still works nonetheless. Straight under that we've got NoteView, and NoteView again, it has the ability that we can obviously transpose stuff. And very recent, I say recently, it's probably a little while ago, I actually did a video where I was actually using NoteView for quite a creative way, because it has on the back, it's got these nice gate and CV notes, and we can start transposing stuff around using CV, and I had different things coming in, so it's really nice. And obviously we get this really nice view of exactly what's going on, especially if I say transpose it, we can switch between the input and say, oh, there's our input and this is our output. So that's quite a handy, nice view. Below that, we're going to go into DeNote, and the only reason I'm linking these two together is because they've obviously got a display of the keyboard being shown. The big difference is, another thing I like about DeNote is it shows you the full range in one shot, whereas with NoteView you obviously have to toggle around to see to see the different ranges. It doesn't fit the full range in. One nice thing about NoteView is, yeah, it's a little bit clearer, it's slightly bigger, which is quite nice. But then another nice thing about DeNote is there's actually a slight lag on these notes. So you might say in some circumstances you want it really snappy when the gate's off, but what I found is, especially when I have a lot of genitive projects running, display, as people probably know with a heavy reason session, are a bit laggy updating. So NoteView doesn't even show sometimes notes being played. It's not NoteView's fault, this is, it's the way Reason works. But because this has a slight lag on it, it does usually show up. So I actually find this quite handy for that. So what else does DeNote give us? Well, quite simply, we can actually just click on here and I can actually start zoning out this, or we're actually changing the range of what notes we're listening to. So I can even go up to here, so we just got the two middle notes down to one note. And so this is really handy that you could stack these up and say, oh, actually I'm going to have, that's going to be my range, or my zone, as I like to prefer to call it, for this particular stack. And as I say, I'm going to talk about combinators because, well, actually, let's talk about that now. Obviously, within combinators, we can set up zones. We can even do transposing within a combinator. The biggest issue I have with a combinator when you do it is if you ever change your device in there, it loses all the settings and you have to come back up and you have to set your zone up again. And if you're transposing, you have to set the transposing. But the great thing about players is you can obviously just shove the players on top, and if you change the instrument underneath, they're still set up, they're still going to work. The transpose is still set up exactly the same, and the zone in this particular case would be set up the same. And it'd be the same with all kinds of other things as well. I very quickly, like the CV tap, I love to wire up the CV tap and have my CV data come into here to say to drive something like Kong rather than going directly to the gates of Kong, because it means I can just swap out Kong for redrum and it's going to start working without any rewiring. So, you know, players are really, really handy to have above. So right below DeNote, we've got these two devices here from Tonic Mint. One's called InRange and one's called Note Limiter. In fact, they both do similar things. I'm just going to cover up that little bit there, where just like this, we can come down and we can actually affect the range, and we can start blocking off things, take it out altogether if we desire. The nice thing about, and the big things about this device here, the InRange one, is I love this feature here where we can actually say, well, if we're out of range, what are we going to do with it? We can do different things, and it's this one here I like a lot. So it's out of range and it's now moved it to its nearest note. So as I take this down, it's going to play lower and lower and lower. And if I make my range the other way, it's going to play it higher and higher and higher. So it's taken these notes, which should be playing here, and it's now playing them up here. It's transposed them automatically for me. But the difference is I'm not specifying how much to transpose them. It's always going to play them here. So even if I was to move these notes all the way down here, it's still going to play them same notes up here. You need to have special care of it in a way, but I find it really, really handy for setting this up, especially in the genitive projects I do a lot of, or even if I'm doing some bassy sort of stuff, I can set up a bass thing here, so if I do start to play slightly higher, I can actually have them notes transposed so the bass doesn't start sounding horrible when you start going up or out of range, depending on what sort of bass you are playing. So I find these really, really cool feature of this particular device. I'm just going to put it onto block a second. Another real cool feature of both of these devices is obviously we've got quite a few sort of CV inputs, and as I say, I've got a keyboard wired up to here now, and I'm just going to hold down a couple of keys. In fact, there we go, I've held these keys down and I've got it to block mode. So them keys are now being blocked, so in fact I can virtually take it off. And this is quite creative. So even from that simple pattern now, you know, it starts to sound nice and creative. And obviously if we do the convert and say I was going to hold down, oh in fact I'll tell you what I do, let me grab this and move it say below there, let's do a copy of it so you can see the input notes. I'm now going to hold down a C either side, and as you can now see, these Cs are no longer being played and they've been transposed. One's played up and one's down because these are the two Cs. So that one's being played higher up and this one's being played lower down. And of course, if I didn't want these really to go down and I wanted these to say to go up into the higher range, well, I can obviously take my range here, move it up to say to that point there, should do it for what I was doing. So I can't remember which keys I was holding now. So let's hold them down. Oh. Yeah, no, that should have worked. This should have worked. Why didn't that go up? That should have. Oh, it's playing that one up here now. Yeah, sorry, it's playing a double one. So if I was to hold that one. So now it's taken these two and played them up here. So I was holding that C down, and of course that C is just going to transpose onto the one which is already playing anyway, so you wouldn't notice it. So now, of course, I'm holding two Cs down, it's going to move, it's just going to play both the Cs up there. But it's quite a bit of fun. So this convert is really a nice feature, I think, of this particular device. The fact that we can take our separate CV in and we can decide what to do. It's like, so I could say, let's go the opposite ways. Now it's waiting for me to actually press some keys to allow these particular notes to say through. I'm not playing them, I'm just holding these two keys down on this other keyboard and that's it. And of course it's coming through and it's just filtering it through. The big difference with Note Limiter, it does exactly the same things, however it works on velocity range. So if we was to come back up here to my sequencer, and let's give these a little bit more velocity at these end ones. Oh, I should also just bring this one down before I move on to the velocity. This obviously as well has a note filter. Sorry, I'm over here. So obviously I can filter stuff with this one as well. I do prefer DeNote personally if I was doing it for quickness, and obviously if I want to start transposing stuff around, then the InRange works really well. So on this one here, we can start messing around with the velocity. So as we turn these up, as you can hear, we're cutting the keys out because the velocity is below this particular range I've set. And I can also cut out some of the high keys as well. And I'm just left with a few of the middle notes. So it'll be probably just a few of these high ones, which would just be playing. I will admit, if I was playing around with velocity stuff, I'm more likely to go for one of well, I'll probably go for velocity curve, to be perfectly honest. We've also got the Midi Compressor. Oh, one thing I will mention is that the Midi Compressor and NoteView were the original third-party dev first players that came onto the market. So when Reason 10.1 came out and third-party players were introduced, Midi Compressor and NoteView were one of the first ones out there. So we can also do velocity range with the velocity curve. There's a number of different ways we can do it. Obviously we can use these, so I've now just made everything, the velocity fully the same. This is actually a display showing you what the current velocity or the last velocity was being played. I can even cut, so I've got this option here what's saying cut. So it's actually going to be a bit like the InRange here. It's actually not going to pass the MIDI across at all, whereas obviously if I turn cut off, it's now passing the MIDI through, but it's zero velocity. And obviously if your instrument's set up for velocity sensitivity, you may not hear it at all. So it works very similar, but the MIDI is going through. You can obviously got curves on this one, so we can play around with the curves. But the big feature I think on this particular device is we can actually draw in our own curve. Yeah, and I really do like that. I think that's quite a nice thing. As I said, this is the old school, or the original one. I do prefer velocity curve now over this. I've used this so much. This is nice again because it's quite easy to use, so we can say that's our minimum, so we're going to make sure all MIDI notes are now playing above velocity sensitive would be 64 there, or I could bring this down and make everything really, really quiet and say I really want you playing everything quiet. We can obviously make the velocity level across the board, similar to that. And we've got this input level, and we've got this makeup level. These are not levels as in, this is CV, so we're talking about CV data here. We're not talking about anything to do with audio data at all. So your velocity data obviously goes from 0 to 127, and we can obviously offset that basically, so we can push it up and we can reduce it after, so we can put it through a curve, do stuff, and maybe bring it down slightly or push it up slightly. Next one's a little bit more of a weirder one, I suppose, because this in itself isn't doing anything apart from viewing what the velocity data is. The big difference with this one, say over this, especially if you're, and I know it's to do with a chord detector, but on the back there is a mode where you can put it into velocity monitor mode, is if I play a chord, it shows me the velocity for each of the notes I'm playing, and it is actually from left to right. So if I was to play that lower key a lot harder, you can see it goes up, and then if I was to play that one harder, you can see that's going up. So it's quite a nice one. So as you're playing, you can sort of work out if you've got a lazy finger or not when you're playing chords. as I say, it's quite a nice one as a purely for kind of monitoring. And do I need to talk about this one again? So sorry, the UTL covers a number of things, and obviously we've got a velocity filter here as well within the UTL. So the UTL not only allows us to do offset note filtering, we can also do velocity filtering as well. And we can set the velocity to a particular range, so anything you end up playing through here, we can make obviously a particular range. We can offset that as well, so we've got an offset feature, and obviously it goes into the minus range. So it's quite a versatile little utility, this one. And as we're here, we might as well just talk about, we can set everything to one single note. So where that will come in handy is if you're sort of playing maybe a percussion instrument and you're getting your data coming all over the place. Yeah, that can be quite a nice one. So at the very end, of course, we've got Delta, and Delta does virtually everything we've spoken about above. Where these come in more handy, without a doubt, over Delta is the speed. So, I mean, how quick is that to sort of set a zone up? It's lightning quick. This has got obviously a real nice feature because we can obviously shift things out of range into range, which we can do with Delta to an extent, but it'll take a lot more programming to get it right. I mean, Delta's really good at shifting, as transposing up or down several octaves, but if I wanted to work it the same as this, I'll have to have several if statements. I could get it to work, but obviously it's a lot easier to come here and go, click, done, job done. The other thing I forgot to mention about on this device, let me see, you can got a zoom out here, sorry, and if I click on the patch and let's zoom in over here, is it comes with all these different scales that you can obviously set up, and I mean it goes, the list goes on and on and on and on, and it's got loads of things I've never even heard of, but then again I'm not really a music technician, but yeah, you've got all these different kinds of scales that you can choose, and you know, and there we go, it's chosen it there. So it's there's a lot of features built into these as well, you know, from that side of things. But as I was saying, great thing about Delta is it does everything we've spoken about above, and it does it more because we can really mix and match it. So here, you know, I'm getting that same sequence coming in, I'm transposing some stuff up, transposing some stuff down, I'm velocity randomly offsetting the velocity on some of the notes. Then I've got this other toggle switches then saying, no, I'm only going to offset a whole pattern, and then I'm going to switch, and then, you know, so that is the same thing what we're listening to, and here's the result. You can see it's so creative, isn't it, really, at the end of the day, is Delta. But as I say, it's the fact that you can do multiple things, and on specific notes as well, if you want, you know, it's, yeah. But it takes a little bit more setting up. You know, so if I want to do a quick transpose or something, yeah, these would be the two devices I'd go and grab. I've been really enjoying, obviously, the Tonic Mint one because of the CV side of things. NoteView's great, as I say, for creativity. DeNote is just great because I say it's got this slight lag on the notes, so that really helps when you're playing a lot of fast stuff, and it's very, very quick to set up your zones. InRange, I've been having a lot of fun, more so with this side of things. So when we start changing things and we can move things up and down. And as I say, don't forget, we've got the CV mode, which is really nice. Note limiter, that's probably the only one which hasn't had a lot of viewing in, because as I say, if I really want to mess around with velocity curves and things, I'd start sort of playing around with other things. But you know, it's there, it has its usage. Velocity curve is a nice one, as I say, especially as we can start drawing our own curves in. We've got a little bit of flexibility. Midi Compressor, yeah, well, I've always used that since it's come out. So these are quite handy devices when you're playing against, you know, like I've got my little LPK 25. It's like a little bit of a Mickey Mouse keyboard, you know what I mean? And so using these devices with that really helps sort of level out the velocity on that particular thing. UTL, great little handy little thing. It's got loads of little functionality, but again, I just find the above a lot quicker to use. Obviously, Chord Detector in this particular case, it's just purely for viewing stuff. Again, I find that personally really handy for the sort of work I do. Delta, well, you know I'm gonna scream up and down about this particular device because it's just so brilliant. Yeah. And hey, Morningstar, what a great little synth that is as well. You get some real nice little sounds out of this thing as well. So that's it. As I say, it's just going to be a little quick video just to talk about these particular players. Sorry, I'm burbling a little bit here, but all I'm going to say is thanks for watching and bye for now.